Imagine this. You come across a magical mask that, the moment you put it on, grants you the strength of 100 elephants. That's exactly the sort of thing that happens in our story today. The tale begins with a boy named Leo Thompson, who was battling a much bigger opponent during an official wrestling match. Despite his opponent's greater size, Leo slammed him to the ground and struck him with a powerful elbow knock, winning the match with surprising ease. But that match wasn't real. It was just a glorious dream of Leo's, one that vanished the moment he woke up. Leaving the world of dreams behind, Leo hurried off to school, where he ran into his friends Caleb and Rio, who were thinking about taking part in the school wrestling competition. However, Leo wasn't particularly interested because in his dreams, he felt like he'd already won the WWE title. These small local tournaments no longer held any appeal for him. But just then, some bullies overheard their conversation and started picking on the three friends. They snatched Caleb's drawing, ridiculed it right in front of everyone, and made fun of him. Later that day, during lunch, Leo was completely distracted by Erica, a girl he secretly had a crush on. He was so busy staring at her that he managed to spill all his noodles onto himself. After school, as Leo was heading home, those same bullies caught him again and chased him at top speed. A passing car forced them to pause for a moment, during which Leo slipped into an unfamiliar house to hide. The bullies were still after him, so Leo rushed into a room, which turned out to be a storage space filled with all sorts of wrestling equipment. The bullies realized he was in there and started banging on the door loudly. At that moment, the owner of the house arrived and quickly drove the bullies away. Meanwhile, inside the room, Leo noticed a mask among the various items, a mask that smelled quite awful. Just as Leo was about to put it on, the house's owner walked in and began questioning him. But after seeing how innocent Leo was, the man decided to let him keep the mask as a gift. When Leo got home, he sat down with his grandma to watch their daily wrestling match, just like always. Right about then, his dad, Steve, also returned home. At that exact moment, they saw an announcement on TV about a wrestling championship, whose winner would be crowned the next NXT champion. The best part was that this championship was taking place in Leo's own city. The final match of this championship was going to be a cage match, and the victor would get a WWE contract and a grand prize of $50,000. Hearing this news made Leo very excited, but at the same time, he also wanted to know more about his mother, who hadn't come home in several days. The moment Leo began asking about her, though, Steve changed the topic and left. The truth was that Leo's mother, Rachel, had left the family to marry someone else, and it was difficult for Steve to talk about it. How could he possibly explain to his son that your mother just doesn't care about you? Grandma Denise wanted to stay with Leo for a few days because Steve had to work extra hard to pay off the thousands of dollars in debt sitting on his shoulders, which kept him away from home most of the time. Later in his room, Leo tried on the mask. The second he put it on, his voice took on a deep resonance, and he could feel an incredible strength surging through his body. Seeing this, Leo immediately realized there was something special about the mask. He attempted a somersault, but his foot accidentally collided with a cupboard, causing it to topple toward him. This time, though, Leo stopped the heavy cupboard with just one finger. That still wasn't enough to satisfy him. Wanting to test his newfound strength, he moved on to what one might call bench presses, but instead of a normal barbell, he started lifting entire cars. Then, outside in the yard, he kicked a tree so hard that it fell over. Intrigued by the mask's powers, Leo dug deeper and learned that this artifact had once belonged to a powerful old-time wrestler. It was said to hold numerous mystical abilities, and it only chose its wearer according to its own will. In fact, no one had seen this mask for the past 50 years. The next day at school, Leo saw Trevor and his gang picking on his friends again, just like always. But this time, Leo wasn't going to stay quiet. He took out his mask and warned Trevor to stop, but Trevor and his friends didn't take his threat seriously at all. Suddenly, Leo switched off the lights, disappeared into the darkness, and when the lights came back on, the three bullies were found hanging from the lockers. That same day on TV, the first competitor in the championship was announced. His name was Samson. Most people were convinced he was going to be the star of this competition. The very next day, Leo decided to participate in that same championship, wearing his mysterious mask. But the receptionist at the sign-up counter thought Leo was still too young. After some arguing, he finally registered under the name Kid Chaos. As he made his way among the other wrestlers, one of them tried to stop him from taking a seat. A wrestler named Smooth Operator offered Leo her seat instead. A little while later, Samson entered the room. The moment he sat down, his weight snapped the chair, drawing everyone's attention. The The championship began with a throw event. Samson went first and threw 2 barrels. When it was Leo's turn, he launched his barrel clear out of the stadium. Next, the wrestlers had to show off their moves on a practice dummy, and Leo amazed everyone by leaping from one side of the ring straight to the other. After all the tests were done, it was time for the selections. Smooth Operator was announced second to last, and the final name called was Leo, which made him extremely happy. Once the selection was over, Leo sneaked back into his room through the window, only to find Grandma Denise waiting for him. When she questioned him, Leo revealed that he planned to win the championship and use the prize money to pay off his father's debt. The following day, while Leo and his friends were studying in the library, he saw Erica nearby. His friends kept pushing him to go talk to her while wearing his mask, but when he finally approached her, he couldn't gather the courage to speak face to face. Instead, he ended up talking to her from behind a bookshelf. During that conversation, they agreed to study together sometimes, and maybe chat on the phone occasionally, which made Leo really happy. Meanwhile, the championship was officially underway. In the first match, a wrestler named Leslie emerged victorious. Smooth Operator and Samson also managed to secure easy wins in their respective opening bouts. Meanwhile, Kid Chaos was fully prepared to take on an opponent called Cowboy. But as soon as the match started, Cowboy began tossing Leo around like a rag doll. Although Leo tried to stop him, Cowboy picked him up and slammed him onto the ring. Right when Cowboy was about to begin the countdown, Leo suddenly shoved him into the air with a single push. Leo thought he'd won the match, but Cowboy quickly bounced back and tried tying him up with a rope. This time, Leo was ready. He threw the rope back at Cowboy and sprinted around the ring at top speed. Finally, he ended the match with his trademark elbow knock. The following morning, Leo was sitting in his room when Grandma called him downstairs, where he found Erica waiting. Seeing her at his home took him by surprise. Erica explained that she had come over without calling so she could surprise him. And for Leo, it was definitely a bit more excitement than he was used to. Seeing this potential romance in the house left Leo feeling a little overwhelmed. Anyway, in his next match, Kid Chaos was up against a wrestler named Stinkface. As soon as Leo approached him, when the match began, he was greeted by an unbelievably foul smell emanating from his body. It was so bad that Leo could barely stand it. Capitalizing on his discomfort, Stinkface rubbed his sweaty arm all over Leo's face, overwhelming him with his stench and knocking him down. As Stinkface came at him again, Leo slid right between his legs in one swift move. At that exact moment, he let out a thunderous fart. The ferocity of it practically sent Leo flying out of the ring, but somehow he managed to keep his balance. He then fought back, brought him down, and when he went for the pin, he used his foot because he could not bear that overpowering smell any longer. The next day, as Leo was leaving for school, Steve asked him about his friendship with Erica. In order to dodge the question, Leo changed the subject back to his mother. That same day, Leo and his friends were hanging out in a cafe chatting about Kid Chaos when a few random guys asked Erica why she was wasting time with these losers. Erica simply replied that she was with her friends and didn't need anyone's approval for it. Right then, an armed man burst into the cafe and pointed a gun at the waiter's head, causing everyone to duck under the tables. At that moment, Leo revealed to his friends that he was Kid Chaos. He quickly put on the mask and confronted the thief, hurling plates of food at him with such speed that he brought the man down and dragged him out of the cafe. Back at home, Grandma Denise tried to convince Steve to finally tell Leo the truth about his mother. Leo was still clinging to the hope that one day she might return, and until he learned otherwise, he'd continue to believe so. Meanwhile, Leo was getting more and more famous at school, which irritated the bullies. They started watching him closely, but Steve still had no idea about his son's new powers. Moving on to the semifinals of the championship, Samson faced off against Leslie. She gave him a tough fight, but in the end, Samson unleashed a devastating finishing move to win. Next up was Kid Chaos versus Smooth Operator. Outside the ring, they were good friends, but just as Leo was about to step into the ring, he felt something strange under his foot and slipped. Smooth Operator suggested Leo take a moment to recover, but Leo insisted on starting the match without delay. The match began, and in one swift move, Smooth Operator flung Leo right out of the ring. That's when Leo realized someone had smeared glue inside his shoes. Before Smooth Operator could pin him for the countdown, Leo threw him up into the air. Smooth Operator tried a series of attacks afterward, but Leo evaded each and every one, once again catapulting him upward and then sealing his victory with a mighty elbow blow. Before heading off stage, though, Leo praised Smooth Operator in front of the crowd and assured everyone that he would never resort to cheating to win a match. Someone else must have tampered with his shoes. After the match, Leo rejoined his friends, who were getting ready for the school's talent show. Just then, Leo was called away to attend a press conference, completely unaware that Samson's agent had uncovered his true identity. At the press conference, Samson smashed a table with one hand, and then his agent prodded Leo to do the same. Leo retorted, "Do I look crazy to you, like someone who goes around smashing random tables? Is that written on my forehead?" Furious at Leo's response, Samson lunged at him, but the security guard stepped in to stop him. Once the press conference ended, Leo was asked to do a photo shoot, which delayed him from getting back to school in time for the talent show. At school, Erica grew anxious because everyone else had arrived except Leo. She asked the principal to schedule their performance last, but even after all the other acts finished, Leo still hadn't shown up. Left with no choice, Erica had to go on stage alone, and seeing her by herself, one of Leo's friends decided to join her, much to everyone's surprise. Meanwhile, by the time Leo wrapped up his photo shoot and raced to school, all he found were his buddies waiting in an empty auditorium. They had seen pictures of him posing and having a good time at the shoot, so they were more than a little upset. Leo tried apologizing, but they'd been waiting for hours, and the images of him seemingly goofing off made it worse. When he stepped into the parking lot, he discovered that the bullies had completely wrecked his bike. The next morning, Leo tried once again to apologize to his friends for ignoring them, and after he apologized repeatedly, they finally forgave him. A few hours later, when Steve came home, he couldn't find Leo or Denise anywhere. Eventually, Leo went up to his room, where the family portrait still hung on the wall, reminding him of better times. Soon after, on the day of the championship's final match, Samson and his agent came into Leo's changing room. The agent told Leo that he knew his real identity. While the agent kept Leo and Grandma Denise distracted, Samson quietly swapped out Leo's magical mask for a fake one. A short while later, both wrestlers entered the ring, and Leo still had no idea that the mask he was wearing had no powers at all. WWE superstar Sheamus had been invited to watch the match in person. On the other side of town, Steve was watching it on TV, not realizing that his own son was Kid Chaos. The match began, and Samson quickly started beating Leo up. None of Leo's moves were having any effect. He tried lifting Samson once, but Samson simply flung Leo across the ring. Then Samson revealed Leo's real mask, making it clear he had switched them. Right away, Leo understood Samson's plan. Instantly, he tore off the fake mask in front of the entire audience, exposing Kid Chaos's true identity. Steve, along with everyone else, looked on in shock. Without missing a beat, Samson tried putting on the magical mask himself, but his massive head wouldn't fit into it, so he angrily tossed it toward the top of the cage, where it got stuck. Leo then threw down the fake mask to distract Samson, but Samson wasn't in the mood to talk. He attacked again. The referee tried stopping Samson, but Samson was too strong and ended up taking him out too. Finally, he spun around and hurled Leo high into the air, and that launched Leo close to the real mask. There was a desperate scramble, Leo trying to get his hands on the mask and Samson doing everything he could to stop him. Right then, Steve arrived, worried for his son's safety. He reminded Leo, "Don't forget, Samson's true weakness is his fear of heights," which they had discussed earlier. Hearing this, Samson suddenly wobbled and fell. Seizing the moment, Leo managed to grab hold of the mask. But this time, Leo chose not to use its powers, and instead hurled the mask outside the ring. With his own skill and courage, Leo launched himself from that high vantage point and struck Samson with a devastating elbow knock, winning the match through his own ability, not the mask's magic. Ultimately, by earning this victory on his own merit, Leo won the prize money and used it to pay off his father's debt. From then on, they all lived together happily and at peace. If you liked the video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. We'll meet again in the next video.